stop what you are doing right now. Because what Eala just pulled off at the 2026 Miami Open goes so far beyond anything that happens inside the white lines of a tennis court that the entire sports world is still trying to catch its breath. We are talking about a 20-year-old from the Philippines who walked into Hard Rock Stadium carrying the weight of a nation, stared down a veteran who had tortured Coco Gauff herself, survived the longest match of her entire career, then turned right around and knocked off a former top 20 player to reach the round of 16. And somewhere in between all of that, before the first ball was even struck in anger, she did something that broke the internet and reminded every single person watching exactly why Eala is not just a tennis player. She is a phenomenon. She is a movement. And the cameras at Hard Rock Stadium caught every single second of it. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to March 16th, 2026, because that is where this story really starts. 3 days before her first match, Eala made a stop that nobody outside the Filipino sports world could have scripted. She walked into Kaseya Center in South Beach and sat down with Erik Spoelstra, head coach of the Miami Heat, the first Asian American coach in NBA history to win a championship. The Miami Heat documented the reunion on their social media, captioning the moment with the words, "Just two powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level." Think about what that image means. Think about what it represents to every Filipino who has ever felt invisible in an American sports landscape that was never built with them in mind. There is Eala, 20 years old, ranked 29th in the world, sitting across from one of the most decorated coaches in basketball history. Two Filipinos, two champions. Two people who refused to let the world tell them there was a ceiling on what they could become. The two had first met in 2023 when Eala was just 17 years old, attending a Heat game that coincided with Spoelstra's 700th career coaching victory. Now, 3 years later, Eala was back in Miami not as a wide-eyed teenager sneaking into the arena to watch a basketball game, but as a seasoned professional tennis player preparing to defend a semi-final run that had shaken the entire WTA to its core. The symmetry of that moment is almost too perfect to believe. 3 years ago, she watched Erik Spoelstra earn win number 700 from the stands. Now she was sitting across from him preparing to author her own history in the same city, under the same South Florida sun. But the story of what the cameras caught in Miami does not begin or end with a celebrity reunion. It begins with the practice courts at Hard Rock Stadium and the ocean of Filipino flags that had already transformed the tournament grounds into something no WTA event had ever seen before. Eala has received staggering fan support at every tournament she has played in 2026, and the Miami Open was always expected to take that phenomenon to an entirely different level. Hundreds of Filipino fans arrived hours before practice sessions. They lined the walkways, they spilled onto adjacent corridors, they held signs written in Filipino, they waved flags the size of bed sheets, and they chanted her name in a language that made the chair umpires do double takes. Security had to create corridors just to move her from one part of the complex to another. Tournament officials stole glances at each other. This was not a tennis crowd. This was a Davis Cup final. This was a national reckoning, happening on the practice courts of a WTA 1000 event in Miami Gardens, Florida. Eala has spoken openly about what her fame feels like, revealing that even walking around her home neighborhood in Quezon City has become a completely different experience. It is weird because being at home is like the most normal thing, she has said. But being famous at home, I walk around the streets or go to the restaurants I have gone to since I was a kid, and all of a sudden, people are asking for photos. That is the reality of what Eala has become. Not just a tennis player in a ranking database somewhere. A face, a symbol, a reason for an entire nation to set their alarm clocks at 3 in the morning so they can watch a match being played on the other side of the planet. The cameras caught all of it. Every flag, every tear, every sign written in the wobbly handwriting of a child who had traveled hours just to stand behind a fence and catch a glimpse of their hero. And then came the tennis. And when the tennis started, what happened was even more jaw-dropping than anything that had occurred before a single ball was struck. Eala entered the 2026 Miami Open as the 31st seed, ranked 29th in the world, but carrying a brutal hidden burden. A massive chunk of her ranking points came from this very tournament in 2025, meaning she was essentially starting the week in free fall before she even hit a ball. After the 380 points she earned for reaching the semifinals last year were stripped from the live rankings on match day, Eala had tumbled to 51st in the world on raw points before her opening match even began. So let us be clear about what the stakes were. Every match Eala played in Miami was not just about winning. It was about survival. It was about holding on to everything she had spent an entire year building from scratch. An early exit would not just sting, it would send her spiraling down the rankings in a way that would take months to recover from. Her opponent in the second round was Laura Siegemund, a 38-year-old German veteran who had spent 2 decades learning every trick, every angle, every psychological manipulation that professional tennis could possibly offer. Siegemund is one of the oldest players in the women's top 60, and she came into Miami fresh off a straight sets win in the first round. She had the experience, she had the craftiness, and she had something else. She had one of the most infuriating behavioral tendencies in the sport, the deliberate delay, the slow walk to the baseline, the lingering between points that drives opponents absolutely crazy and quietly dismantles their rhythm from the inside out. Ask Coco Gauff. Gauff had her own explosive confrontation with Siegemund at the 2023 US Open, screaming at the umpire that the German had gone over the shot clock 4 times. "She is never ready when I'm serving," Gauff had said, barely containing her fury. Now it was Eala's turn to deal with the same psychological warfare. And what happened on Stadium Court at Hard Rock Stadium on the 19th of March 2026 was the most gripping tennis match of the early season. Eala raced to a quick 3-0 lead in the first set, the crowd already roaring, the Filipino flags waving like a sea of red and blue and yellow. It looked like it might be over in an hour. It was not going to be over in an hour. Siegemund, as veteran players do, dug into the guts of her experience and stopped the bleeding. She clawed back 4 of the next 5 games to level the set, and then the moment that every Eala fan watching at 3 in the morning in Manila will never forget. Eala squandered a 3-0 first set lead and 4 separate set points, including one at 6-5 in the tiebreak, before Siegemund won 3 straight points to steal the set. 4 set points, gone, vanished. All that work, all that energy, all that crowd noise, all those flags, and Siegemund stood there stone-faced and pocketed the set like she had done it 1,000 times before, because she had. Midway through the second set, the gamesmanship boiled over. When Eala was serving at 2-1, Siegemund walked to the back of the court after Eala misplaced a ball toss, deliberately slowing everything down. Eala responded by walking straight to the umpire's chair and making her feelings absolutely known. "Just wanted you to know, this time I was about to serve," she told the umpire. Siegemund fired back without blinking. "It is not about the time, it is about the focus." There it is. That is the moment. That right there is Alex Eala in 2026 versus Alex Eala in 2025. 1 year ago, she was a wild card, smiling and grateful just to be on the court. Now, she is walking up to the chair umpire mid-match, planting her flag, and telling a 38-year-old veteran with decades of experience exactly where the line is. That is not a girl learning her place on the tour. That is a player staking her claim to it. The crowd absolutely lost their minds. And then Eala went out and broke Siegemund twice in the second set and twice in the third set, and wrapped it up with a composure that left even the most seasoned tennis observers shaking their heads. After dropping that grueling opening set that lasted nearly an hour and a half, Eala regrouped, raced to a 3-1 lead in the second set, seized control, and won both the second and third sets 6-3 to seal the match after 3 hours and 20 minutes on court. 3 hours and 20 minutes in the Miami heat, battling not just the tennis, but the mind games, battling the clock, battling the pressure of 380 expiring ranking points, battling the ghosts of 4 squandered set points. And she came through every single time. After the match, when the interviewer put the microphone in her face and asked about the endurance test she had just survived, Eala smiled that signature smile and delivered the line of the tournament. "It definitely was close," she said. "Very demanding physically and mentally. But that was one of my goals last year after this tournament, to improve physically. And here I am, fresh as a flower, fresh as a flower, after 3 hours and 20 minutes, after the longest match of her career on the WTA Tour. After 4 squandered set points and a public confrontation with a seasoned veteran and 380 ranking points dangling over her head like a guillotine, fresh as a flower. That is not bravado. That is not media training. That is who Alex Eala actually is. And the cameras caught all of it. But the story did not stop there, because what happened next pushed this Miami Open campaign into genuinely historic territory. Eala was set to face Magda Linette in the 3rd round after the 34-year-old Polish veteran pulled off one of the biggest upsets of the tournament, stunning number 2 seed Iga Swiatek in 3 sets. Think about what that meant. The Swiatek rematch that every tennis fan on the planet had been circling on their calendars, the revenge match that the world number 3 had been waiting 12 months to have, was gone. Swiatek, the 5-time Grand Slam champion, the woman who had demolished Eala at the 2025 Madrid Open after her Miami humiliation, was out of the tournament. The bracket had cracked wide open. And Eala walked through it. She faced Linette, a 34-year-old veteran who knew her game well and had the tools to cause problems, and she did what she has been doing all year. She competed. She fought. She executed under pressure on the biggest stage she has ever known. Eala defeated Linette and advanced to the round of 16, where she will face the dangerous Karolina Muchova, the round of 16, at the tournament that changed her life. 1 year after arriving as a wild card ranked 140th in the world, she is back in the 2nd week as a seeded professional, ranked 29th globally, stacking ranking points and building on a foundation that is starting to look less like a breakthrough and more like a dynasty in formation. After her Siegemund victory, Eala reflected on exactly how much has changed in the 12 months since she first made Miami her stage. I think in terms of my life, this is kind of my first year being fully on tour, she said. I came into Miami last year as a wild card. Now I am in the 3rd round again, so I am really, really happy. And then she said something that tells you everything about what kind of champion she is going to become. Asked about how she manages the enormous changes in her life, Eala credited her team for keeping her grounded. I think that is also the great thing about my team, she said. They do not make it feel like such monumental changes for me. We take it day by day, and they really keep my feet on the ground. Day by day, that is the philosophy. Not ranking by ranking, not match by match, not viral moment by viral moment. Day by day, take the Spolstra reunion, take the practice courts surrounded by thousands of Filipino flags, take the confrontation at the umpire's chair, take the longest match of your career, take the upset draw that removes Swiatek from your path. Take all of it, absorb it, breathe through it, and wake up the next morning and do it again. That is what elite athletes look like when they are in the middle of becoming great. Not the highlight packages, not the press conference sound bites, the quiet, grinding, relentless accumulation of days. And somewhere in all of those days, between the practice courts in Kaseya Center and the 3-hour war against Siegemund and the clinical victory over Linette, something bigger was happening that no camera could fully capture. Alex Eala was proving that what happened in 2025 was not a fairy tale. It was not a hot streak from a wild card who got lucky with the draw. It was the first chapter of something that is going to redefine women's tennis for the next decade. During her breakthrough 2025 season, Eala became the first tennis player in Philippines history to crack the top 100, beat a top 5 player, reach a WTA Tour final, win a Grand Slam main draw match, and claim a WTA Challenger title. Every single one of those firsts in a single season. And now she is in the round of 16 in Miami again, this time as a seed, this time with a full year of professional experience behind her, this time with the fitness and the mentality and the match toughness of a player who has been tested and passed every single exam. Karolina Muchova is next, a former top 10 player with Grand Slam final experience, a player whose game can dismantle any pattern you try to impose on a match. This will be the hardest test of Eala's Miami campaign so far. But hard tests are what revealed Alex Eala to the world in the first place. Hard tests are what she walks toward, not away from. The girl who stared down a 38-year-old veteran in the middle of a match and walked to the umpire's chair to draw her line. The girl who survived 3 hours and 20 minutes in the Miami heat and came out smiling and called herself fresh as a flower. The girl who carries the hopes of 115 million people on her shoulders like it is the most natural thing in the world. That girl is not afraid of Karolina Muchova. She is not afraid of anyone. The cameras at Hard Rock Stadium have been rolling all week. They caught the reunion with Spoelstra. They caught the sea of Filipino flags that turned a tennis tournament into something that looked more like a national holiday. They caught the confrontation at the umpire's chair. They caught the comeback from a set down and 4 squandered set points. They caught the victory lap, the smile, the press conference, the quiet dignity of a 20-year-old who somehow carries the hopes of 115 million people with the same ease that she carries a tennis bag. They caught all of it. And what they captured is the story of a player who is not just good enough to be in the conversation about the future of women's tennis. She is the conversation. She is the headline. She is the moment. Eala came back to Miami in 2026 and refused to let the magic of 2025 be the ceiling. She raised it. She is raising it still. And every single point she wins from here forward at Hard Rock Stadium is not just a point on a scorecard. It is a statement. It is a message to every person who doubted whether her run last year was real, whether she could sustain it, whether the pressure of defending points and carrying a nation's expectations would eventually crush her. The message is simple. Watch me. And we are watching. All of us, every Filipino fan waving a flag in the Miami heat, every tennis purist who shook their head last year and had to admit they were witnessing something extraordinary, every young girl holding a sign behind the practice court fence, hoping that her hero will see her. We are all watching. So if you are watching too, here is what you need to do right now. Drop a comment below with your score prediction for Eala against Muchova. Tell us how deep you think she goes in this tournament. Does she reach the quarterfinals? Does she make another semifinal? Does she do something this week that makes what happened last year look like a warm-up act? Let us know. Hit that subscribe button on Court Era Tennis and ring the notification bell so you never miss a breakdown, a match update, or a story that goes deeper than the scoreline. Because the scoreline barely scratches the surface of what is happening here in Miami, and we are just getting started.